What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Mailari. So here we are live in the WZBC studio tonight. As always, every single Tuesday night from 7 to 8 o'clock, bringing you an hour of sports, whether it's Boston sports or just sports in general, across all four major sports leagues. Here we are live. I'm going to start off talking about the NBA. I'm going to start off with the Clippers and their big signing, which just happened yesterday. A big acquisition for their lineup. One of my favorite players is now an LA Clipper, and I couldn't be more excited. So I saved that. I was going to talk about it on my podcast yesterday. I had a busy day yesterday, though. I had an exam today that I had to study for all day yesterday, and even woke up early today to study for too as well. So I didn't get to record an episode yesterday when it happened. I usually like doing like a breaking news episode whenever something big happens like that, especially to the degree it was for me, knowing that Russell Westbrook, who is an LA Clipper now, is one of my favorite basketball players. So just seeing him in a Clippers uniform is going to be unreal. And I wanted to do an episode yesterday, as I said, just got too busy studying, so I never got to it, unfortunately. But I'm happy to be able to give you my thoughts on that signing. I'm going to start off with that. Then we'll talk a little bit about the NBA breakdown, NBA All-Star Weekend. I'll talk about the NBA All-Star Game and the defense, which there was a lack thereof. I mean, there's no defense at all. I feel like anybody could have been out there and made a couple shots with no defense at all. We'll talk about Michael Malone's comments, Jaylen Brown's comments, and Stephen A. Smith's comments. I'll talk about all three of those and give my thoughts on what each of those three people had to say about the All-Star Game overall. In addition to that, I am going to move on from that after and talk about the All-Star Game and other sports. So I'm going to talk about the NBA and what they did, and talk about the NFL and how the Pro Bowl was a little bit different this year, a little bit different format, but it was better than it was in years past. And obviously the Pro Bowl is a lot different than the NBA. The football is a lot more physical, so you have to figure out a way to make sure the players can stay safe. And at the end of the day, that's what they ultimately chose to do, the NFL, into making it a flag football game, since no players really wanted to hit, especially after the season ended. Nobody wants to risk getting an injury going into the offseason, then potentially miss time going into next season for just a meaningless All-Star game. So I'll give my thoughts on the All-Star games overall. And then after that, I'll move on to talk about the NFL. I'll talk about Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, talk about the Patriots and potential targets for them in free agency, and also talk about some news across the NFL, where Aaron Rodgers is going to end up, where Lamar Jackson is going to end up. Is Justin Fields going to be traded? Is he going to stay in Chicago? I'm going to break all that down probably at the end of the episode, and then also I'll talk about some college hockey as well, with Northeastern getting a couple big wins over the weekend, or one big win over the weekend, obviously winning the Beanpot last weekend, but they beat the University of Vermont on Saturday night at Vermont at the Guttison Fieldhouse. I was there with Mark Walsh, Cap Curley, Joey Hosey, Paul Gerard, and Ryan Walsh. All five of those guys there with me at the game, so we had six of us at the game, which was awesome. Obviously a big crew with all of us being there, but it was an awesome game to see. Pretty cool to be on the road too and see a Northeastern game, not at Matthews Arena, not at Conti Forum, not at Agganis Arena. It's cool to see a different rink you've never seen before. So Northeastern got a big win in that game. I'll talk about that. Talk about BC hockey. They're actually on a 3-game win streak right now. They're starting to get hot as well. And there's still a lot of time left in the season, even though it's 4 games left. The reason why I say there's a lot of time is because you still have some games that you can make a run in the Hockey East tournament. BC probably has to win the Hockey East tournament to try to make the Frozen Four tournament, since they probably won't be an at-large bid in the pairwise rankings. But realistically, for Northeastern, though, it helps having the Hockey East tournament, since even if they were not to win the Hockey East tournament, if they go on a run and maybe make the semifinals like they did last year, they probably will make it in yet again. So there's only 4 games left in the regular season for all of those teams in the Hockey East. Northeastern will be playing UMass Amherst a home and away. Home on Saturday night at Matthews Arena. Friday night will be at UMass Amherst. And then BC will be playing this weekend as well, I believe against UMaine on the road, both of the games, Friday and Saturday. Yes, Friday at Alfond Arena and Saturday as well. Both those games in Orono, Maine. And then BC will be home, or won't be home. Northeastern will be home Saturday night versus UMass Amherst. The first game will be Mullins Center on Friday night, and then Northeastern will be home on Saturday night, February 25th. I'll talk about some college hockey at the end, as I'm talking about, obviously, NFL as well. Those will be probably quick-hitting topics. I'm going to start off with the NBA. I'm going to talk about Russell Westbrook and what I believe he brings to this Clippers lineup. And I'll start off with this. Everybody knows from listening to my podcast or listening to my radio show last year or listening to this radio show as well, or you just know me in general, and even if you haven't listened to my podcast, my radio shows, everybody knows I'm a huge Russell Westbrook fan. And that's something I've never tried to hide. I mean, at the end of the day, even when Russ was struggling, I stayed with Russ every step of the way. Every step of the way I stayed with Russell Westbrook. Through all the ups and downs, through all the criticism from everyone on ESPN to Fox Sports to everyone online to Twitter. I mean, I've never seen an athlete get criticized as much as Russell Westbrook did. I mean, it was like every time the guy missed a shot, if you went on Twitter, it would be all over Twitter, and everyone would be retweeting it and calling him Westbrook and making fun of him for taking a tough shot and obviously missing it. And at the end of the day, basketball players are going to miss shots. That's a reality. Jayson Tatum bricks a couple threes every night. No one talks about that. That's not on Twitter. That's never on Twitter. No one's ever talking about that. But when Russell Westbrook makes a miss, it's shouted at the rooftop. It's shouted mountains and mountains high every time Russell Westbrook makes a miss. The criticism Russell Westbrook gets is exponential compared to any player in the NBA. And that's why I'm excited to see him in a new environment on the Clippers. Think about this. He's from LA, right? He grew up in California, went to high school in California, grew up in Long Beach, California. That's where he was born. Went to UCLA, tried to go to the Lakers, thought maybe he could maybe win a championship in LA growing up. Being a California player, California kid, you probably want to win a championship for your home state, right? That's just a reality. Obviously, it didn't work out for the Lakers. And I don't blame Russell Westbrook for that. I don't. I think there's a lot of factors that went into that team not getting to where everyone thought they would. Maybe let's talk about LeBron James and Anthony Davis being hurt for a lot of last year. They could never stay on the floor and never be healthy. Russell Westbrook played just about every single game last year. 78 games before, I believe, the last 3 games of the season, they shut him down. But he finished last season averaging 18 points a game, 18.5 points, 7.4 rebounds, 7.1 assists, a steal per game, and shooting 29.8% from 3 and 44% from the floor. Obviously, if you look at those stats, yes, you don't want him shooting 29.8% from 3 and 44% from the floor. But if you look at what he was heading into last year, his overall stats, that's right around where he was for his career. He's a 43.7% shooter from the floor. Last year, he was 44.4%. So he was actually better last year shooting than he was over his career. And he shot over his career before last season, heading into last year in LA. He shot 30.5% from 3, and then last year in LA in his first season, shot just 29.8%. So he's around his career average. And even this year, he's shooting 29.6%. So a lot of people come at him for that. But if you look at his stats, even in his MVP season, 2016, 2017, he wasn't shooting that great from the floor. I mean, 34.3% from 3 was, I believe, his career best. Yes, his career best was that season. But he still only shot 42.5% from the floor. But he was averaging 31.6 points per game. Obviously, he was taking a lot more shots per game. He took 24 field goals a night, 24 field goal attempts per night, which is actually his most in his NBA career. This year is actually his lowest, second lowest, that is, with 14 field goal attempts per game. And I think part of the reason Russell Westbrook never was comfortable in LA was, first off, as I said, LeBron James, Anthony Davis were always hurt. That's a reality. Nobody can really argue that. LeBron James and Anthony Davis were hurt for a lot of last season. Yes, this season, for the most part, LeBron James is healthy. He did miss some games as well, but he's more healthy this season than he was last season. And Anthony Davis will always have his injuries. That's just a reality as well. But for Russell Westbrook, he showed up every single night last year. Whether or not he played great, yes, I get it. He might not have had his best games. He might not be the player he once was in 2016 and 2017. But if you look at Russell Westbrook and the effort he gives every single night, one thing that's undeniable is all the effort that he gives on a nightly basis. Every single time Russell Westbrook checks into the game, you know you're getting everything out of him. 100% on offense, 100% on defense. Whether he misses a shot or he doesn't have a great defensive possession, you know he'll always get back on defense or always get back on offense and drive down the lane full speed that next play. And now if you look at Twitter as well, as I said, every time he missed a shot, it was just all over the internet. Every time, everyone was just waiting for this guy's downfall. Everyone was waiting for him to brick a shot all night so they could throw it on Twitter. But where were all the haters when Russell Westbrook was great off the bench this year for LA? No one talks about that. No one talks about Russell Westbrook driving for the Lakers off the bench. Because why would they? Everyone wants to see a guy like Russell Westbrook feel because you can hit him when he's down. It's so easy to hit a player when he's down when everyone all over social media and every single sports reporter and sports analyst in the sports world is coming at him. It's a lot easier to hit him when he's down. And a lot of players that get that criticism, I tend to root for. Daniel Jones, I was always a fan of, which I think I became more a fan of him because everyone was always hating on him, and he was showing up to the facility every single day at 6 or 7 a.m., the first player in the facility and the last player out, every single morning, every single night during the season over the last few years. So I saw that work ethic, and I saw what he was doing on the field. I didn't blame Daniel Jones for all of the inconsistency around him and all of the ineptitude from the front office. I don't blame Daniel Jones for any of that over his career. Similar to Russell Westbrook, you can't really blame for every single thing that happened in LA. He was a scapegoat for everything that went wrong in LA. He was a scapegoat. And a lot of people look at that trade package that Washington received for Russell Westbrook. Yeah, that was a lot. But at the end of the day, you got to look at it. LeBron James signed off on that. There's no trade that the Los Angeles Lakers will make, nor will there be a signing that the Lakers make, nor will there be a signing that the Lakers make that LeBron James will not sign off on. I just repeated what I just said a second ago since my recording stopped just a second ago, so I apologize for repeating. But there's not going to be a signing that the Lakers make that LeBron James isn't with. And so that Russell Westbrook trade, LeBron James 100% signed off on that. So ever going to talk about the Lakers front office and how they failed LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Well, LeBron James and Anthony Davis definitely signed off on getting Russell Westbrook. And if you look at the Western Conference and what they were, what the Lakers looked like a couple years ago after they won the finals, that was a broken team in 2020. A broken team in 2020, 2021, that season. So what the Lakers thoughts were, okay, let's trade what we have left, all the dead weight we have, Montrezl Harrell, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, even though Kyle Kuzma's playing pretty well this year for Washington. Let's trade all those pieces, and let's get Russell Westbrook. Since what Russell Westbrook was doing in Washington in 2020 and 2021, that one season he was in Washington, his age 32 season, he played very well. 22.2 points per game, 11.5 rebounds per game, and 11.7 assists per game. And that was actually Russell Westbrook's fourth season, that is, averaging a triple-double over his career. That's pretty impressive. 4 seasons he had in the NBA, over a 5-year period, where he averaged a triple-double from 2016 to 2021. So nobody can deny Russell Westbrook's talent, and nobody can deny what he gives you on a nightly basis. If you look at Russell Westbrook's last game with the Lakers, which came a few weeks ago now, when LeBron James broke the scoring record in the all-time NBA scoring record. As a member of the Lakers, obviously being able to break that when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar held the record, obviously that's monumental on its own. But I think Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, everybody wanted to win that game too. Even though LeBron James breaking that record is obviously a great accomplishment, LeBron James is the greatest of all time in my opinion, you still want to win that game. And you know the only player playing in the fourth quarter at the end of that game that was trying hard was Russell Westbrook. They lost to the Thunder that night. This was February 7th, so 2 weeks ago from tonight actually on the dot. Westbrook finished that game 10-19 from the floor, 4-7 from 3, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block to go along with 27 points in 28 minutes of action. And he had 14 points, I believe, in the fourth quarter. That was his last game as an LA Laker, and he was given everything he had because obviously he wanted LeBron James to win on the night that he broke the NBA all-time scoring record. So I don't blame Russell Westbrook for everything that went wrong in LA. There was a lot of things wrong with that team. From having the wrong head coach, Frank Vogel might not have been the problem, but he might not have been the solution either. They did win an NBA Finals with them, but he might not have been the solution with the team they had. You had Anthony Davis, LeBron James always hurt. You had a lack of shooting. LeBron James had no three-point shooters around him. So it forced some bad shots late in games. And if you look at the Lakers team now, that's what they did at the trade deadline. They went and got some guys that could shoot, D'Angelo Russell included. They started getting some shooters around LeBron James. And do you know where Russell Westbrook's going now? The LA Clippers, who are 5th in the NBA in field goal percentage from 3. 5th in three-point field goal percentage in the NBA this season. So now Russell Westbrook will have a chance to thrive. He'll be able to drive and kick it out, and he'll have shooters around the perimeter, including Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Norman Powell, among others, Nick Batum, just to name a few, Terrence Mann. He's going to have options when he drives down the lane. And that's one thing Russell Westbrook still does. He can still get to the cup just as good as anyone. Whether he finishes or not, obviously doesn't happen every single time he gets to the rim. Where he finishes, obviously, is a question. But the way he throws himself in air still and will go up in the air and around guys, every single layup he takes, for the most part, is never easy because he's doing an acrobatic move in air. So that's one thing that field goal percentage doesn't account for. It doesn't account for the difficulty of the shot that Russell Westbrook does take a lot of time. Yes, his pull-up game from 3 and his jump shot isn't great, but a lot of his layups are still tough shots because he's driving full force down the lane, going around a couple guys in air and taking contact at the same time. But now I'm going to talk about how Russell Westbrook fits in this Clippers system and why I'm not worried at all. I think this is a huge signing for the Clippers. And if you look at my favorite players in the NBA, my top 3 are all LA Clippers. Paul George, Terrence Mann, and Russell Westbrook, all 3 of them are now on the Clippers. And my top 3 after that, my bottom 3 after that, I guess, my next 3 I should say, not my bottom 3. My next 3 after that, 4 through 6, De'Aaron Fox, Tyler Hero, and LeBron James. So there you go. There's my top 3 and my next 3. I love Tyler Hero. I love LeBron James. And I love De'Aaron Fox. And Jimmy Butler's in that conversation as well. And there's probably some plays I'm missing as well, since it's tough to really think on the spot here who your favorite players are. Those are my top 3 right there. And they're all on the Clippers. Terrence Mann, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. And one thing people tend to forget is that the last time Paul George and Russell Westbrook were on the same team, Paul George averaged career highs in points per game, rebounds per game, steals per game, three-pointers made, and free throws made. And he was also the steals leader in the NBA that season, first-team All-NBA and All-NBA defense that year. So Paul George thrived with Russell Westbrook, thrived. And this all came in the 2018-2019 season. His second year in OKC before getting moved, or to the LA Clippers, getting moved into trade with LA. That season in Oklahoma City, 77 games played, averaged 28 points per game, along with 8.2 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 2.2 steals, to go along 48.4% shooting from the two-point range, 38.6% from three, and 43.8% from the floor overall. And Russell Westbrook was great that season as well. In that season, 2018-2019, he averaged 22.9 points per game, 10.7 assists, 11.1 rebounds, shooting 29% from three and 42.8% from the floor overall. Also picking up 1.9 steals per game. So Russell Westbrook and and Paul George played very well together the last time they were on the same team in 2018-2019. In 145 games together, in 2 seasons where Russell Westbrook and Paul George were together, Russell Westbrook averaged 24.1 points per game, 10.5 rebounds, 10.5 assists, 1.9 steals, and was a one-time All-NBA second-team selection. Paul George in that same 145-game stint, 24.8 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 2.1 steals, a one-time All-NBA first team, one-time All-NBA defensive first team, 2018-2019 steals champion. In the 2018-2019 season, he was an MVP finalist. And you look at Russell Westbrook's career overall, and this is what he did with Paul George, and obviously they had a lot of success together in OKC in those 2 seasons. But you look at Russell Westbrook's career overall, 2016-2017 MVP, was on the NBA 75th anniversary team. He's one of the best players to ever do it, 1,000% is a Hall of Fame player. 3-time NBA assist champion, 9-time All-NBA selection, 2-time scoring champ, and a 9-time All-Star selection in the NBA with 2 All-Star Game MVPs. Russell Westbrook has had a storied career, and he may not be the player he once was, but the Clippers don't need that. They don't need him to be taking the tough shots with a minute to go that he took in Oklahoma City in that 2016-2017 season, which in that season, it felt like Russell Westbrook, every time he took a clutch three, he drilled it. But to point out, one thing that ESPN said was that Russell Westbrook's willingness to fit a role in the Clippers system was built around his playmaking, rebounding, and his toughness. And I'll add in everything he gives every single night. Russell Westbrook's ambition on the floor every single night and his relentless effort is definitely something that will add to this Clippers team. And I've talked about the Clippers being all dogs. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Robert Covington. I've talked about them all being dogs now for a couple of years. And Russell Westbrook fits that Clipper mentality that the rest of those players have. And Robert Covington, Eric Gordon, both those guys are teammates with him in Houston. They're both happy to have him back in LA, having him on the same team. Now they're happy to have him back in the same locker room. And then you also have Paul George, who was a former teammate of him as well. As I said, they thrive together. So I'm excited to see what he brings to this team. And we'll see what it looks like, what the rotations look like. As of now, the plan is that he's going to start off the bench and then make his way into the starting lineup. And one thing I want to add is, when he makes his move to the starting lineup, I don't want to take Terrence Mann out of the starting lineup. I want Terrence Mann to stay in the starting lineup. Because Terrence Mann, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard just started finding their chemistry together with all 3 of those guys on the floor. With Terrence Mann, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard in the same lineup, They have a 126.8 offensive rating, a 61.1% effective field goal percentage, a 52.4% field goal percentage, a 42.6% three-point field goal percentage, and are a plus 42 in 284 minutes of action. So one thing the Clippers can't do is split up those three guys. But one thing they can do is take Marcus Morris out of the starting lineup and have Russell Westbrook at the 1, Terrence Mann at the 2, Paul George at the 3, Kawhi Leonard at the 4, and Ivica Zubac at the 5, with Norman Powell as the 6, coming off the bench with Eric Gordon, Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, Bones Highland, Miles Plumlee, all coming off the bench. Mason Plumlee, not Miles Plumlee. But they could use help off the bench. So Russell Westbrook starting off the bench isn't the worst thing. But I think he will make his time off the bench valuable, and then will end up making a jump to the starting lineup. So we'll see how he gels. I'm not worried too much at all. If you look at this Clippers team, they're absolutely stacked, and they're just starting to find their footing, winning 10 of the last 14 games. Before that stretch, I believe they lost 8 or 9 of their last 11 heading into that stretch, and now in the last 14 games since that 11-game stretch, have won 10 of 14 games heading into the All-Star break. So they're just starting to find their footing. And now the Clippers' big three, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Russell Westbrook, even though I don't really want to call it a big three since that's what John Wall was supposed to be. I think at the end of the day, the Clippers just have to be a team. I'm not trying to single out just 3 guys. But the Clippers' 3 best players overall, I would say, over their careers, are combined 22-time All-Star selections, have a combined 20-time All-NBA selections, 11-time All-Defense, 1-time MVP, 2 times Finals MVP, 2-time Defensive Player of the Years, and 2-time champions. And both those champions are Kawhi Leonard, 1 in San Antonio, 1 in Toronto. So now, you guys got my entire spiel on the LA Clippers, 22 minutes of where I think Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Russell Westbrook will go with this team. I think they're all going to fit well together. I think Russell Westbrook is going to do great in this system. And even if he misses some shots, I think the Clippers fans will treat him better than the LA Lakers fans did. I think the LA Lakers fans just got too annoyed with the Lakers not figuring things out, and Russell Westbrook was an easy scapegoat for why there were problems and why that team is broken. They didn't have any shooting. They didn't have any depth heading into the season. They had Matt Ryan getting minutes at the beginning of the season because they didn't have enough money to pay guys in free agency. So they lost some guys in free agency, including Malik Monk, who ended up doing well now. While he's playing well in Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox. So Russell Westbrook, I'm not worried about at all, and I'm as confident as ever that Tyronn Lue, head coach of the Clippers, will figure out the rotation. Even though he's been struggling with that all season, this is crunch time. 20 to 25 games left to go in the regular season. The Clippers right now are the 4th seed in the West, and there's no time for them to continue to mess around. They've had a lot of stretches in spurts during the season where they were messing around too much and losing games in crunch time because they didn't have a backup center, and that was one problem, that they always went small ball late in games because Zubac would come out of the game, whether it was foul trouble or they just liked the lineup that they had with Marcus Morris and Nick Batum at the 4 or 5 with Kawhi Leonard out there as well. And the Clippers lost a lot of games because of that. I think if the Clippers got Mason Plumlee earlier, they probably would have won 8 to 10 games more. And they would have been probably the 2 or 3 seed in the West at this point. But now the Clippers are a new look team, adding Eric Gordon, Bones Highland, Russell Westbrook, and Mason Plumlee all within the last week. So now I'm going to make a jump from talking about the Clippers, and I'm going to talk about the NBA All-Star Game, talk about the NBA All-Star Game weekend. I apologize there for the 24 minutes and 30 seconds about the LA Clippers, but I had to get that all out on Russell Westbrook since I feel like he's been a scapegoat in LA for the Lakers, and I think he's going to thrive in this Clippers system where he's no longer going to be the guy getting all the blame. The Lakers obviously had a lot more issues than Russell Westbrook in my eyes, and I think now within a system in LA, with the Clippers, with a better coach and a better system with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, I think he's going to do better. So now I'm going to jump to the NBA All-Star Game, which Jayson Tatum was the Kobe Bryant All-Star Game MVP. Played very well in the game. I think he had 55 points overall. Going to get his stats up just now in a second. Played very well. One thing that you did see in that All-Star Game was that there was no defense at all. And I think that's one thing that the NBA All-Star Game has to do better with is figuring out a way to play better defense, because there was just no effort at all on defense from either side. Team LeBron, Team Giannis, zero effort on either team by either team on defense. Zero effort. And that's the reason that I feel like the NBA has to figure something out and find a way to make it more competitive. They have to. Just like the NBA, just like the NFL had to figure out a way to change the way they were doing the Pro Bowl just to try to make it better and obviously engage fans, you have to alter the way the game's played. In the NFL, no one wanted to hit anymore in the Pro Bowl. But in the NBA, you can still play defense without getting hurt. You can still play defense without getting hurt. And that's why I was confused why it was like a layup line. It was like a layup line. Jaylen Brown said it was a glorified layup line. He's right. Mike Malone, head coach of the Nuggets, said that was the worst basketball game he's ever seen. Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, Stephen A. said there was no defense at all. None. And he said it was like any average person off the street could step into the game and make some plays. It wasn't even like it was an NBA game because no one was playing defense. Besides LeBron James blocking SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the rim on a dunk attempt, that was the only time that there was ever any defense in the game. Jayson Tatum finished the game with 55 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 35 minutes of action. Jaylen Brown played pretty well as well in that game, 35 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists in 25 minutes of action. For Team LeBron, Team Giannis, Jayson Tatum was on 55 points, I said, led them to a win, winning the game 184-175, winning the game by 9 points, and outscoring Team LeBron 59-49 in the third quarter. That's where they got a lot of their momentum, outscoring Team LeBron by 10 points there and 7 points in the second quarter. So between the second and third quarter, Team LeBron was outscored by 17 points. So that was a big difference there for Team LeBron. They just put themselves in too much of a hole going into the fourth quarter, and even though they outscored Team Giannis by 8 points, really just could not pick up from their deficit. And you look at overall in the game, there were just 4 free throw attempts overall in the game. Team Giannis was 3 of 4 from the free throw line. Team LeBron didn't even take a free throw attempt. That just proves there was no defense. 4 free throw attempts total, when in the NBA there's 4 free throw attempts every minute, it seems like, in NBA regular season games. There were just 3 blocks overall in the game. 88 points in the paint for Team Giannis. 118 points in the paint for Team LeBron. There were just 7 total fouls in the game. 7 fouls, 3 blocks, and just 4 free throw attempts. So if that doesn't prove that there was no defense, besides Jayson Tatum going off at 55 points and Team Giannis having Tatum go for 55 and Donovan Mitchell go for 40, with Team LeBron having 2 guys in 32 points or above. They had Jaylen Brown scored 35, Kyrie Irving scored 32, and Joel Embiid scored 32. That just proves there was no defense. I think the NBA has to figure something out. It's really just a 3-point contest for the most part. LeBron's team took 63, hitting 17 of them, shooting 28.3% from 3. And the Team Giannis was 29 of 66 from 3, shooting 43.9% from 3-point range. Yes, Jayson Tatum played great, but there was no defense at all in that game. 55 points, obviously is very impressive. Obviously won the All-Star Game MVP, which is named after Kobe Bryant, his idol, so I'm sure he was psyched about that. But there was just no effort at all, and I think even last year there was better effort. There wasn't great defense until the fourth quarter in last year's game, but this year it was just sad to watch, kind of tough to watch. And even though I didn't really get to watch much of it, since I was coming back from Vermont late on Sunday night, I didn't really get to watch too much of it, but I did watch a lot of the recap and the highlights. You could just tell. The guys were just in there, just, driving down the lane, going for dunks. No one was contesting anything. No one was getting in the way at the rim. No one was getting in the way from the three-point line. Everyone was just shooting wide open shots and driving down the lane freely. It was just basically an open shoot-around. Just this time it actually counted. They actually counted points. So something has to change. And Mike Malone's right. I think it probably was the worst basketball game I've ever seen because it was zero defense at all. Zero defense at all. And yes, the 55 points of Tatum is impressive. Yeah, it's impressive. Don't get me wrong. But if you look at what he's going up against, he was basically just driving down the lane wide open. There was really no competition at all. And that speaks to the competition that the NBA players probably agreed with, which probably came down to let's not play defense. We'll just take it easy. Because that's what it seemed like. That's what it seemed like. And that's a problem, in my eyes at least. I think that's a problem. Because when you're not playing at all and you're not trying in the All-Star game, why do you think a fan wants to watch just, guys driving the lane and dunking? Yeah, it's cool when, you're doing it maybe against guys, maybe there's a little bit of competition, a little bit, of spacing in the paint where, people aren't really giving as much space to drive down the lane. I don't think a fan really wants to see just open dunks, open threes from half court. It wasn't really that exciting. I mean, yeah, when you get to watch a guy put up 55 points, that's cool, but you'd like to see a little bit of defense, a little bit of effort. Because just like Jayson Tatum, just like Jaylen Brown said, it was a glorified layup line. One thing that the All-Star game did that was pretty cool was Team Giannis and Team LeBron did a live draft where they drafted the reserve players first and then drafted the starters after that, with Damian Lillard going first overall out of the reserves. And then out of the starters, Joel Embiid was the first overall pick going to Team LeBron. But I thought it was pretty cool the way they did it, where you have Team LeBron getting the first pick, taking Joel Embiid, then you got Giannis taking Tatum, LeBron taking Kyrie Irving, Giannis taking John Morant, Luka Doncic going to LeBron, Donovan Mitchell going to Giannis, Nikola Jokic going to LeBron, and then Lauri Markkanen of Salt Lake, playing for the Utah Jazz. This was in Salt Lake City, so Salt Lake City, crowd was obviously excited to see him play. He was the last pick of the draft, going to Team Giannis. But I thought it was cool they did a live draft at 7:30 on TNT. I thought that was pretty cool. Live right before the draft, the captains obviously come up and then end up taking, their picks and whoever they want. This is actually the first time Team LeBron lost. LeBron has never lost an All-Star game as a captain. He was 5-0 heading into this year, and Team Giannis gets the best of him now, winning, obviously beating LeBron by 9 points and handing LeBron his first loss in the All-Star game. As for Jayson Tatum, he had a great season overall for the Celtics. Hopefully he keeps that momentum going into the All-Star, or after the All-Star break, that is. And one thing he got to play with was his head coach. Joe Mazzulla was obviously the head coach of the Celtics going into this year as an interim. Now he's actually officially the head coach of the Celtics, getting a deal done with them. He's now the head coach, so the interim tag is now taken off. And he was also the head coach of Team Giannis in the All-Star game on Sunday night, which is pretty cool. Mike Malone was the head coach for Team LeBron. And Mazzulla obviously got to coach Tatum, and that's probably part of the reason he got to play 35 minutes and got to take all those shots. But obviously it worked out for Tatum and Team Giannis getting the win. And now I'm going to talk about the NBA All-Star Game festivities, including the dunk contest, which I really didn't get to watch live. I got to watch the highlights, though. McClung ended up getting a win. And one thing about McClung that was impressive is that a lot of his dunks, he did on his first try. A lot of his dunks. First round, he had a combined 2 dunks, 99.8 points, which was the best in the first round. And then his 2 dunks in the final round, which he was going up against Trey Murphy, who I had winning going into the All-Star game, weekend. I had Trey Murphy winning that slam dunk contest. But Mac McClung did very well. He's a G League player, but stepped in, got the opportunity, and shined, going 50 and 50 in his last 2 dunks, which was very impressive. And that's a guy that really doesn't really do too much in the G League. I mean, he's not a bad player, has some talent, but he's a better dunker than he is probably a scorer overall. And it's pretty impressive that he got to be in the NBA All-Star Game and got to participate in the festivities. Not the All-Star Game, but got to participate in the dunk contest during the All-Star Game weekend, representing the 76ers. But I feel like you just got to get better competition for that as well. But I understand why players don't really want to do the slam dunk contest, since they really don't want to risk injury. Yes, LeBron James could do it. Yes, John Morant could do it. Yes, Zion Williamson could do it. Yes, there's a ton of other players that could do it as well, like Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine. But I don't think a lot of guys want to risk injury, and that's probably part of the reason that you won't see those guys do it. And that's why you see guys like Mac McClung, Jericho Sims, Trey Murphy, and Kenyon Martin Jr., 4 guys that aren't all-stars, that aren't superstar players, that aren't on really good teams right now fighting for, big spots in the playoffs. I mean, Trey Murphy and the Pelicans having a decent year. They've been falling as of late. Same thing with the Knicks. They're a playoff team as of now. But these guys aren't superstars on their team or the best players on their team. So it's okay if they were to do it and, risk getting hurt. Obviously, no one wants to see anyone get hurt during the dunk contest. But you never see LeBron James in probably his second to third to last season in the NBA, maybe his fourth to last season in the NBA, risking an injury in a dunk contest. You're just not going to see that. Nor will you see a guy like Zion Williamson, who's very injury-prone, participating and potentially letting himself get hurt in a dunk contest. Same thing with John Morant. He's had his fair share of ankle injuries, rolling his ankle from going up and trying to make acrobatic dunks in games. You're not going to see him do that. Anthony Edwards, he's one guy you probably could see do it maybe. But considering that there's really no other competition, I don't really think any players really want to get involved with it. So we'll see what they do next year, and maybe they'll try to change up the format, maybe try to get more stars involved, try to make it more exciting. But credit to Mac McClung. He obviously ended up doing well for himself. I think he won $100,000 for the All-Star game, in that weekend for winning the dunk contest. And I think that's right around his salary in the G League as well. So he almost doubled how much money he's made or is going to make this season just by winning the dunk contest on Sunday night. So very impressive of him. 99.8 in the first round between his two dunks, and then 100 in the final round between his two dunks there. He had 3 dunks that were 50s and a 49.8. As for Trey Murphy, he really couldn't get anything going. In his first dunk, he ended with a 46.6. In his first dunk in the first round, 49.4. In his second dunk, which was better. And then his 2 dunks in the final round combined for 98 points. Obviously, it was not enough, though, to win it. But credit to Mac McClung for getting that done. It was very impressive what he did there. And obviously, credit to him for going out there and balling out, even though he was a G League player. Went in there with no fear and ended up winning it. So, obviously, that's a great feeling for him. Now I'm going to talk about the three-point contest. Going into this, I had Tyler Hero winning it. I thought Tyler Hero was going to ball out. But he didn't even qualify for the second round, which I was very shocked by. And credit to Damian Lillard. He played very well at 26 points in the first round and 26 points in the second round, outscoring Buddy Hield in the final round, 26-25. Tyrese Halliburton led all scorers in the first round with 31 in the first round of three-point contest, but only had 17 in the final round. Halliburton, as I said, was unreal in the first round, outscoring everyone by at least 5 points, but only had 17 points in the final round, losing to Buddy Hield and Damian Lillard. Buddy Hield obviously has won a three-point contest before, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, but Damian Lillard was just locked in. 26 points in the first round, 26 points in the second round. And going into this, you see the field. Kevin Huerter only had 8 points in the first round. Yeah, he's had a pretty decent year shooting from threes. Had a good year shooting for the Kings. But Julius Randle being in there? Come on. Lauri Markkanen being in there? Come on. These guys might have decent three-point percentages, overall in games. But when you think NBA three-point contest, you think of Ray Allen. You think of Steph Curry. You think of Klay Thompson. You don't think of Julius Randle. That's the thing. That's why I think the NBA has to figure something out there as well. They have to figure out all their all-star game festivities. At least the three-point contest, you'll have stars or superstars like Damian Lillard competing in, since there's really no injury risk there. But overall three-point percentage in the NBA this year, Malcolm Brogdon's number one. He wasn't in it. 45.5% from three. Buddy Hield does lead the NBA in three-point field goals made on the year. But overall three-point field goal percentage, only one guy in the top 10 participated. And that was Buddy Hield. He's 8th in three-point field goal percentage this year. So I'm not really too sure. Maybe Malcolm Brogdon, Isaiah Joe of OKC, maybe Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, maybe Luke Kennard, maybe Alec Burks, maybe all those guys denied. Maybe Joe Harris as well. Maybe they denied the offer to try to play in the three-point contest. That's probably part of it, I'd imagine. But obviously, you want to see better competition in all three competitions. The skills competition, the three-point contest, and the dunk contest, and in the All-Star game. But thankfully, Damian Lillard ended up staying hot and obviously kept that interesting. I've always been a big fan of three-point contests, and I like Dame Dollar as well. Dame Dollar does get hot, and obviously getting 52 points between those two rounds is very impressive. Outscoring, as I said, Buddy Hield, 26-25 in a thriller, winning, I believe, is his first three-point contest. I believe it's his first one. Let me see here. Just want to make sure I'm right here. Yes, his first one. First one ever. So add that to all his accolades. 7-time All-Star. 1-time All-NBA first team. 4-time All-NBA second team. 1-time All-NBA third team. Was a Rookie of the Year and also part of the NBA 75th anniversary team. So that's my thoughts on the NBA All-Star Weekend. I do think they have to figure something out with the All-Star game. I just thought there was no defense at all. I thought the NFL did pretty good with altering their format this year. The Pro Bowl was split up between the AFC and the NFC still. But what they did was they broke up the competition from competitions on Thursday and Sunday. On Thursday, precision passing, which Derek Carr won that for the AFC, getting 31 points. So that gave the AFC 3 points to start. Then there was a lightning round where the AFC won, beating Eli Manning, hitting him into dunking him in the confetti in the final round. Eli Manning ended up falling in or getting hit with the confetti. 6-0, the AFC were up. And I'm just breaking down what happened in that just because I want to talk about how they altered the format. And then there was a longest drive, which was a golf tournament. Jordan Poirier ended up winning that for the AFC. And then to finish off Thursday night, there was the dodgeball tournament, which the NFC ended up winning, beating the AFC in the final round. So they split it up by 4 competitions on Thursday. And then on Sunday, there was 3 flag football games. There was a best catch competition, a move the chains competition, a gridiron gauntlet, and a kick-tack-toe tournament. And obviously the NFC ended up winning that, Eli Manning, and the NFC outscoring his brother Peyton in the AFC 35-33. Credit to the NFC for winning the last game. Kirk Cousins coming back and leading the NFC down the field to win the game. They were down 21-15, ended up winning that game 35-33 overall, winning that flag football game, that third game. And among all the competitions, the NFC ended up winning and outscoring the AFC overall, which ended up totaling out to being, I believe it was still, let me see, adding up all the points. I think it was 35-33, actually. Yeah. I think it was 35-33 among all those points. So, pretty impressive stretch there. I think it was, let me see, 26. So each game was 6 points. So the NFC ended up winning that by a score, 35-33, winning in the second half of that. 35-33, pretty impressive. And as I said, Kirk Cousins led them down the field, which is impressive. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like the NFL saw that there was no tackling involved. They said, all right, let's change what we're doing. And even though, I mean, the Pro Bowl still probably isn't going to get as many views as it would if it were to be a legit game with a tackling and everything, I just think the injury risk is too much, and that's probably part of the reason that the NFL had to change it. Because if you look at the NFL and the Pro Bowl last year, there was 0 tackles. You couldn't even touch a quarterback. You tapped the quarterback, and it was a sack or a tackle. And in the NBA, they have to figure something out as well. I just thought the way they were doing things in years past in the NBA, where they were trying to change a format and trying to do it where it was the fourth quarter and the teams are playing harder defense since it meant more for charity and obviously meant more overall to the score of the game and who won, I thought that was pretty cool. But they really ditched that idea this year overall and went back to the no defense, just like the NFL and the Pro Bowl did. But I thought what the NFL did in the Pro Bowl was pretty interesting this year. You had Eli Manning and Peyton Manning each coaching the AFC and the NFC. Obviously, with all those different competitions, it was pretty cool as well. And you also had different players from different teams all competing in different tournaments, whether it was the dodgeball tournament, the longest drive tournament, the best hands tournament, or the best catch tournament it was called, which Amon-Ra St. Brown outscored Stephon Diggs in that. But I thought it was pretty cool the way they did everything. It was more engaging than it was in years past. I think people looked at the Pro Bowl that weekend and said, oh, it's not going to be really anything to watch, which I didn't think it was really going to be great either. But I knew Eli Manning and Peyton Manning being involved in it. I thought it'd be something fun to watch. And that's why I thought, hey, it'd be something to watch for me. And I ended up watching it, obviously, ended up seeing the NFC win and saw Dexter Lawrence and Saquon Barkley both represent the NFC, which is pretty cool as well. And obviously saw Eli Manning being the head coach of the NFC too. So I thought what they did was pretty cool. I thought the NBA, with what they were doing with the NBA All-Star Draft, I thought that was pretty cool. But with the no defense, I thought that was just something that has to change. As for the dunk contest, McClung winning, being a G League player and not really having much experience in the NBA, I thought that was pretty cool. And I thought he really shined in the biggest moment. And he ended up making, a lot of money on that. I think he ended up winning $100,000. Let me see what he gets for a prize. His career earnings before that was $100,000, and he banked $100,000 just winning the dunk contest, which is pretty cool. So, for a guy that really didn't have much to play for and, had a chance of winning $100,000, that's what the prize is for a player to win the dunk contest, he went in there and won it and obviously made a name for himself. People know McClung from, his days in college, but in his entire pro career heading into this point, he only had $106,000 earned, and he won $100,000 in just one night with 4 dunks, including 3 being a perfect 50. So that was pretty cool. I thought he did well, and then obviously Dame Lillard saved the 3-point contest as well. But overall, the NBA All-Star Game, something has to change there. So now I'm going to move on I talked about the NBA a lot. I talked about, obviously, the Clippers. I talked about Jayson Tatum. And I obviously talked about the NBA All-Star Game in the NFL Pro Bowl and how things have changed here. Now I'm going to move on to the NFL and give you my thoughts on the NFL offseason, which obviously now it's underway, which you can now start franchise-tagging players. That window just opened, I believe it was yesterday. So Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, two of those guys could potentially, one of them potentially could be franchise tagged by the Giants. Only one of them can be. You can't franchise tag more than two players or more than one player. So Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, the Giants have to make a decision on, and they'll have to figure out what they want to do with those two guys. But according to reports yesterday, Daniel Jones is looking for $45 million per year. $45 million per year. Which that does seem like a lot of money, which it is. $45 million a year is a lot for any player. I really only think Patrick Mahomes would be the only player I'd give $45 million to. Maybe not. Maybe Joe Burrow, probably Trevor Lawrence in a couple of years as well. But I don't think I'd give many players $45 million. But that's just what the market is right now. There are 10 players making over $33.5 million. 9 players making over $35 million in average yearly value. Kyler Murray's making $46.1 million per year. Deshaun Watson's making $46 million. Patrick Mahomes is making $45 million. Russell Wilson's making $48.5 million. And then you have Aaron Rodgers getting $50.2 million in average money per year. So that's 5 quarterbacks making over $45 million. Then you have Josh Allen making $43. Matt Stafford making $40. Dak Prescott making $40. Kirk Cousins making $35. Jared Goff making $33.5 million, topping out the top 10 right there. Then after that, you have Carson Wentz getting $32 million, Matt Ryan getting $30, Ryan Tannehill making $29.5. That's 4 quarterbacks. I mean, Jared Goff probably had a better season passing-wise overall than Daniel Jones, but also had a better run game, better offensive line, and better wide receivers than Daniel Jones had. But as for Wentz, Ryan, and Tannehill, Daniel Jones is better than all 3 of those quarterbacks. All 3 of those quarterbacks, and they're making between $29.5 million and $32 million in average value per year. So Daniel Jones is going to get at least $35 million. I know I was called crazy a couple weeks ago when I came back from winter break, or probably about a month ago now, when the Giants beat Minnesota in the wild card round. I came back on that Sunday, or Monday, I believe it was, since it was a long weekend. I came back on that Monday night and went to watch the Cowboys game at the Circle Bar right near BC with a lot of my friends. It was Cowboys-Bucks, wild card round between those two teams. Tom Brady's last game in the NFL. And I remember saying I think Daniel Jones is going to get 3 years and $105 million, $35 million per year. And that was called crazy by a lot of people. But if you look at it, 9 quarterbacks making over $35 million, and that's not including Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson. 4 quarterbacks, all that are guaranteed to get paid within the next year. And then you also add in a guy that's probably going to be paid by this time next offseason, Trevor Lawrence. So that's 5 quarterbacks that are going to be making over $35, probably $40 million per year, I'd say at least. Probably around $45 million per year. So if you take all 4 of those guys, that means there'd be 9 quarterbacks making over $45 million in average value per year. And then you have Josh Allen making 43 and Matt Stafford making 40. And Dak Prescott making 40. So you add in those 4 players, that means there are 12 quarterbacks making over $40 million per year. You don't think Daniel Jones deserves to make around $40 million per year? I think $45 million seems crazy if you look at it overall. Yes, I think it looks crazy overall. But that is what the market is set at. The market is set for these guys to make $45 million. And that's the reason I think Daniel Jones will get paid. I think Daniel Jones is going to find himself getting a good payday. Because if you look at it, there are 8 quarterbacks right now making over $40 million. There are 9 quarterbacks making over $35 million, and soon to be 4 more of those adding in with Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert all getting paid, with Trevor Lawrence as well getting paid. That means there will be 5 quarterbacks making guaranteed over $35 million per year. So Daniel Jones, if he gets $35 million per year, and if he would have got the 3 years, $105 million deal that I thought he'd get, he would have been the 14th or 15th highest paid quarterback in the NFL in average money per year. Which doesn't seem that crazy. That's just what the market is. Daniel Jones was an econ major at Duke, very smart kid. He knows where the market's set at. He knows econ. He knows what he's valued at. He knows what the quarterback position should get in the NFL today, especially for a playoff team, and what he did this year for the Giants. He knows what it's set at. And overall, all those quarterbacks I named, I would take Daniel Jones over those guys in the top 10, so I'll just name them really quick. Rodgers, Wilson, Murray, Watson, Mahomes, Allen, Stafford, Prescott, Cousins, and Goff. Among the top 10 quarterbacks there getting over $33.5 million, it's really the top 11 since Goff's the 10th, but you have Prescott and Stafford tied for 8th. 7th, really, 7th and 8th. So among those guys making $35 million, I'll cut it off at Cousins. So over $35 million, I would take Daniel Jones over every one of them except for Patrick Mahomes. It sounds crazy. I know. Josh Allen and Daniel Jones, I like Daniel Jones more than I like Josh Allen. So I'm going to roll with Josh Allen. Might sound crazy. I don't care. I'm fine with saying that. Josh Allen may have better talent, may have better stats overall, but I like Daniel Jones more as a quarterback. And also, they got to the same position in the playoffs this year, and Josh Allen had a much better team around him. Josh Allen almost lost to the Miami Dolphins with Skylar Thompson as the quarterback. I mean, come on. I think Josh Allen and the Bills, I think they're a good team, but I do think they're overhyped, especially heading into this season. They were, I believe, the Super Bowl favorite, and obviously didn't live up to the hype. But let's say you'll take Josh Allen over Daniel Jones based off talent and based off his stats. Because, yeah, stats are better than Daniel Jones. He had more touchdowns, obviously. Also more interceptions at the same time since he throws a little more. But let's say you take Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes over Daniel Jones. Are you going to take Dak Prescott, Matt Stafford, and Kirk Cousins over Daniel Jones? I don't know. I mean, it's up to you. I wouldn't. Are you going to take Deshaun Watson over Daniel Jones? I wouldn't. Are you going to take Kyler Murray over Daniel Jones? I wouldn't. Are you going to take Russell Wilson over Daniel Jones? Zero chance. Are you going to take Aaron Rodgers over Daniel Jones? Maybe if it's just based off one season. If it's just one and done, you're trying to win now, even though Rodgers does end up failing typically in the playoffs, he still, for the most part, puts together a good regular season, combination of stats when he has a good wide receiver to throw to. So I think Daniel Jones will find himself making around $40 million. I think right now he's going to be valued around 3 years, $120 million, 4 years, $160 million. It might sound like a lot of money. Not all that's going to be guaranteed. As of now, I would guess $72 million will be guaranteed of that $140, with a lot of that being backloaded probably, with the Giants having flexibility or maybe front-loading the first year, and then maybe the next couple of years be spread out depending on the Giants' cap situation, how they figure out what they're going to spend on in this offseason, how they're going to create flex cap space. But we'll see what they were to do. But I think Daniel Jones, by this time next year, will be probably the 13th or 14th highest-paid quarterback in the NFL, considering Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert will all be getting paid $38, $40 million plus in their next contracts. And rightfully so for Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, both those guys put together great seasons this year. Lamar Jackson obviously struggled to stay healthy. And then you have Justin Herbert, which I'm not the biggest Justin Herbert fan. I think he's a good quarterback, but I think he's overhyped as well. Doesn't even have a playoff win in his career. Lost this year to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Choked that game away, which obviously was a collapse in offense and defense. I think Herbert's a good quarterback, but I don't think he's in the Joe Burrow, the Patrick Mahomes, the Trevor Lawrence category. I don't. I think the NFL, those are your top 3 quarterbacks heading into the future. Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence. That's what I would take at least. So we'll see what happens to Daniel Jones. As of now, I think he gets around 4 years. I'd say 4 years, 150. Right now, I'd say he gets around 4 years, 150. That's just a guess. Getting $37.5 million per year. Maybe they meet in the middle. I know he said he wants $45 million per year. He just hired a new agent. Probably part of that being that he probably wants a little more money. The agent probably said you valued around $35 million, and he probably said I want around $45. And I think the Giants probably value him around $35 million. And I think they'll probably come to a consensus in the middle, and he'll get around $38, $39 million per year. As for Saquon Barkley, I think the franchise take him, give him 1 year's $10 million. 1 year, $10 million. If the Giants were to franchise take Daniel Jones, which I don't think they want to do, it would be a $33 million cap hit for this year, with none of it being able to be, none of it being potentially flexible. You can't really flex a player that's on a franchise tag. Yeah, the Giants could transition tag him, and it'd get less money, I believe, and a team would have to give up 2 first-round picks in order to get him, but I don't think that's a potential. I don't think any team really is going to give 2 first-round picks for him, since you can really try to sign a guy and maybe try to draft a guy, try to find a cheaper option than try to pay 2 first-round picks for a quarterback. Because the 2 first-round picks, you're trading for a quarterback in a transition tag, you might as well just trade overall and try to get a guy in a longer-term deal than a guy that hasn't been signed yet, which we'll see. Maybe Daniel Jones, that would be the case, but I don't think anyone's going to trade for him on a transition tag. But we'll see what happens with Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. I don't think the Giants want to transition tag Daniel Jones since it's a $32 million cap hit, and they're going to have to figure out what they want to do in the offseason there, and obviously have to create cap space. I think they have $46 million right now in cap space, but 32 that would be taken up by Daniel Jones. So I think Saquon Barkley will be transition tag. Daniel Jones will get a long-term contract, and we'll see where the Giants go from there. As for the Patriots, I'm going to talk about them for a couple of minutes now and talk about what they're going to do in the offseason. I think the Patriots' main priority is finding a wide receiver one. Obviously, going into the offseason, I think an offensive coordinator was a big deal. You get Bill O'Brien. That's great. Obviously, he's had some chemistry with Mac Jones at Alabama. Knows Bill Belichick very well. Obviously, worked with Nick Saban. Obviously, Bill Belichick and Nick Saban are very good friends as well. So, you get a guy that is pretty good friends with Nick Saban. And obviously, was in that system at Alabama and flourished there. So, obviously, Bill Belichick's going to be excited about that. And then you get a guy that has some experience with Mac Jones. And hopefully be a guy that Mac Jones listens to. The Patriots right now have the fifth most cap space in the NFL at $37.8 million. They have around $38 million right now that they could obviously free up some more money and try to get, a bigger player in free agency. I think their biggest need is a wide receiver. I think if you look at the Patriots cap space, you have Matthew Judon getting a $17 million cap hit, which is a steal. But then you got Jonnu Henry and Hunter Henry. Jonnu Smith, and Hunter Henry getting $17 million and $15.5 million. Those are your second and third highest cap hits on your cap space. Your second highest and third highest cap hits are two tight ends, which Hunter Henry obviously has had some touchdown success for the Patriots and obviously had some production. But Jonnu Smith getting $17 million, getting 7.63% of the cap is ridiculous. 14% of your cap is going to tight ends. 14%, which is way too much. I think the Patriots are probably going to try to keep their best wide receiver heading into this offseason, Jacoby Myers. I think he'll get around $14 million, Jacoby Myers. I value him around, I think I would probably give him $12.5 million. I think he'll probably get maybe 14 in the open market. Maybe 3 years, $42 million, what he'll get. I think that's what he'll probably get maybe from the Patriots if the Patriots want to keep him. But I think you need a wide receiver one. I think Jacoby Myers is a good wide receiver too. But the Patriots have to look for something that can stretch the field and help out Mac Jones. Whether you're a Bailey Zappi fan or a Mac Jones fan, the Patriots have to find a way to spread the field and go get a wide receiver one. You look around the league, the best quarterbacks, they all have great wide receiver ones to throw to. Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And also Tyler Boyd is a good wide receiver too. Josh Allen has Stephon Diggs. Aaron Rodgers for years had Devontae Adams. Matt Stafford and his success in 2021 and winning the Super Bowl in 2022, Cooper Kupp he had. You need a top receiver if you want to be successful in the league in the NFL today. You need a top receiver. And that's what the Patriots are missing. You're missing a top receiver and you're missing the offensive coordinator and stability in the offensive staff. Because if you look at it, Joe Judge was not getting it done and neither was Matt Patricia. And even though they probably set up to fail, I feel like going into this season, getting a new offensive system when Mac Jones did pretty well, throwing for 22 touchdowns his rookie season, and then going into this offseason, losing Josh McDaniels to the Las Vegas Raiders, becoming the head coach there, and then starting a new system and trying to use the Shanahan system, I just think the odds were against Mac Jones. And obviously, he has some character issues probably, which I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he wants to win. And by character issues, I mean he's not really listening to the coaches since he's probably frustrated with the new system, since there's obviously a lot to learn, the Patriots system overall, and then you add in a whole new dimension in the Patriots system with it being the Shanahan system. So we'll see what they go get, but I think the Patriots probably have to go get a wide receiver in the open market. Maybe they go trade for DeAndre Hopkins, which I don't think really is likely. DeAndre Hopkins has, I believe, a $30 million cap hit this year, which that would be a lot to try to move. But maybe they try to go get a guy in the open market, which I think that's the Patriots' biggest need. Obviously, you need some help with the offensive line too. That's another need. But if you look at the Patriots' season overall last year, the defense played pretty well. It was just they were missing weapons at the receiver position. They obviously had a good running back in Ramondre Stevenson, What's going to happen with Damian Harris, I'm not really too sure. What's going to happen with Mac Jones, I'm not really too sure either. I think they'll roll with Mac Jones one more year. I think that's really the best decision. I don't think you really should give up on Mac Jones just after one bad year. Just like even though Zach Wilson played very bad for the Jets, when you're the second overall pick in the 2021 draft, you got to give him at least one more season. At least one more season. We'll see what happens there, and obviously the Jets will have a decision to make there, but I'm excited to see what happens for the Patriots this offseason. Since Bill Belichick, who knows how many years he has left, maybe 2 or 3 more seasons. We'll see what he has left. But he's obviously going to want to win, and he's obviously going to want to surround his team with winning pieces. And obviously being the GM, he really hasn't made the best decisions in the first round, but the Patriots had the 14th overall pick. What's he going to do with that? Draft a wide receiver? Draft offensive line? Draft a pass rusher? I mean, the Patriots could go a million ways, which pass rush isn't really the biggest need, with Matt Judon obviously having a really good year this past year. But maybe you go cornerback. Maybe you go wide receiver. Maybe you go offensive line. I mean, there's a lot of avenues this Patriots team could take. Or they could just take the same avenue they always take. They always trade down. That's just the Patriots' specialty, is trading down every single draft. The Patriots love trading down. And that's likely. I mean, that could be a potential possibility in this year's draft as well. So we'll see what the Patriots choose to do. But I'm excited to see what this Patriots offseason looks like. I think they'll probably go get a couple of pieces on the offensive line, go get another cornerback, probably get another safety as well, maybe get another linebacker, and probably add on their offensive system with a couple wideouts, maybe one wide receiver one, which I think is desperate in today's NFL. You need a guy that you can throw to. Look at what Trevor Lawrence looked like this past year with Christian Kirk, who was a wide receiver 2/3 in Arizona, gets a high payday in Jacksonville to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Trevor Lawrence had his best season. Obviously only played 2 seasons, but he was a lot better than he was his rookie season. And that factored in going to get a wide receiver one, a playmaker in Christian Kirk. And part of that is forecasting. You got to see Christian Kirk and say, okay, he's not really getting utilized well in Arizona as the wide receiver 2/wide receiver 3. Let's bring him into Jackson. Let's see what he can do. The Patriots might have to bank on that. Just like that, some team might bank on Jacoby Myers being a wide receiver 2 on the Patriots, but being a wide receiver 1 on their team. The Patriots might have to go out and look at the wide receiver market and say, okay, let's go get a guy in this offseason. Let's go get a wide receiver 1 or potential wide receiver 2 that can be a wide receiver 1 for us. Would you look at wide receivers in the open market this offseason? You have Jacoby Myers, which let me get the free agent market completely open here. I want to just make sure I get it down. But you look at what the Patriots could do. They could trade for a guy with DeAndre Hopkins. I don't really see that as likely. T. Higgins potentially could be moved by the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't really see that being likely, but there's a potential possibility there. Juju Smith-Schuster is a free agent. Odell Beckham Jr. is a free agent. Michael Thomas, I believe, is a free agent. Allen Lazard's a free agent. Paris Campbell's a free agent. I mean, the Patriots could go multiple ways. It could go get a couple wide receiver 2s and see how that works. But I don't think it's worked for Mac. I think Mac deserves to get a wide receiver 1. And even if Mac isn't the guy, the next guy you bring in would come in to a system with a wide receiver 1 and hopefully a better offensive line with the Patriots. Hopefully, looking to try to make moves there and try to, build upon their offensive line this season. I think you have to build around Mac Jones, give him one more season, just like the Jets had to give Zach Wilson one more year. Whether or not the Jets want to bring in a guy like Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, or Jimmy Garoppolo, that's fine. I think if you bring in a guy like Lamar Jackson, I don't think Zach Wilson has any future with the Jets. But you bring in Zach or Derek Carr to work with Zach Wilson, or you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo and sign him to a 1-year or 2-year deal, there's a potential possibility that Zach Wilson's still a Jet this time, or 6 months from now, by the start of the season. But you bring in a guy like Lamar Jackson, I don't think there's any chance Zach Wilson's a Jet. I think he'd be moved right away. And the Jets would get, whatever they can for him back. I think he's valued around a 3rd or 4th round pick. That might seem high to some people, but I think you could get a 3rd or 4th round pick for Zach Wilson right now. As for the Ravens, if they were to trade Lamar Jackson, which I think they're going to franchise take him at the very least, I think they could probably get 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick for Lamar Jackson, maybe a 3rd-round pick. I value Lamar Jackson at 2 first-round picks and maybe a second-round pick, with one of those first-round picks being a top 1 in this year's draft, maybe being top 10 to top 15. Which the Patriots had the 14th overall pick in this year's draft, but I don't think they'd ever make a move for Lamar Jackson. But you never know at the end of the day. But I think the Jets are going to go try to make a move for either Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, or Jimmy Garoppolo. The Raiders are going to go try to get either Jimmy Garoppolo or Aaron Rodgers. And we'll see what the 49ers do. I know they said they might roll with Brock Purdy since he had a pretty good season, but I think there's still a potential possibility they bring in a guy as well. Maybe the New Orleans Saints actually bring in Derek Carr. They've had a couple visits with them now. Maybe the Saints bring in Derek Carr. Maybe the Tampa Bay Bucks go and get one of these guys. I mean, there's a lot of potential possibilities with this NFL offseason. I'm excited to see where things go. I'm excited to see where things end up and where players go. Because I think this offseason, there's going to be a lot of movement among quarterbacks, which I already named Derek Carr, and I already named Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Garoppolo. But there's some other pieces in there as well. Justin Fields could be traded from the Chicago Bears. They're talking about that being a possibility. Matt Ryan could be on the move, which I think he's still got a big cap hit on the Colts this year, but I think he could potentially be cut or traded, which I don't really know how much he has left in the tank, but we'll see. Daniel Jones, I don't think he's going to leave the Giants. Who knows what he'll get in the open market if the Giants were to let him go, which I don't think there's any chance the Giants let him go, but you obviously have to keep that in mind. There could be a team like the New York Jets, which I was listening to Tiki and Tandy today on WFAN radio in New York. They were saying that the Jets are really just a quarterback away, and Daniel Jones could be that piece. And they were saying Daniel Jones, even though he's a great quarterback, could be more valuable to the Jets since they're a closer team to winning than the Giants are. And that's why the Jets could try to, give up more and potential sign and trade with the Giants and the Jets, which I don't think that's potential. I don't think the Giants are going to trade him. I think the Giants will sign Daniel Jones to maybe 3 years, 4 years, getting maybe $38 million per year. That's what I would give Daniel Jones, giving him around $70 to $75 million in guaranteed money, and maybe making the last year or two being an option. Maybe the last year of that 4-year deal, if you give him a 4-year deal, making that 4th year an option. So the Giants would have flexibility if they were to want to move him in the coming future. You never want to be left in a Russell Wilson situation or a Deshaun Watson situation where you're giving a guy $49 million or $54 million on the cap and you really want to move him, but you can't because you gave him 5 to 6 years guaranteed. Just about fully guaranteed for both those guys. I believe Deshaun Watson was fully guaranteed, and then you had Russell Wilson getting about almost fully guaranteed, if not all guaranteed. Which I'm going to get Russell Wilson's contract up here just to make sure I get it right. But that's the thing. $161 million of $242 million guaranteed for Russell Wilson. So you never want to be left in one of those situations. That's why I think the Giants might give Daniel Jones a 3-year fully guaranteed deal with 4th year being an option for the team, with potential flexibility to move him if things were not to work out. But Tiki and Tanny were right. I think Daniel Jones is worth it. I think he's going to get around $40 million, and I'd be fine with it. 4 years, $160 with maybe $75 million guaranteed. That's what I would value him at right now if I was the GM of the Giants. That might seem like too little to some. That might seem like too much to some. Probably more people think it's too much than too little. But there might be some that say, $40 million is what the market's set at. That's what it is. The market is set right now for a starting quarterback in the NFL to make $40 million. That's just a reality. And why would Daniel Jones not make that? He had the highest quarterback rating in any single game in the NFL this season. Also had the highest passer rating, which was a different game than he had the highest quarterback rating. He also had the highest passer rating in any single game in the NFL this season. Adding in 22 touchdowns with just 5 picks, 15 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns, 700 rushing yards to go along with 22 touchdowns overall and just 5 interceptions and I believe 3 turnovers. He cut down his turnovers a ton. His offensive line still wasn't great. I think it was around 30th ranked offensive line. Let me see. NFL ranked OL. I still believe he had, I think it was the 30th offensive line ranking. Let me see. I just want to make sure I got that right overall. But he also had mediocre wide receivers. I mean, he's throwing to Isaiah Hodgins, who was a practice squad wide receiver in the Bills up until week 10. He's throwing to Richie James, who was the 6th wide receiver in San Francisco. He was throwing to Darius Slayton, who was the 6th or 7th wide receiver in the depth chart heading into the preseason. And then you had Wan'Dale Robinson tear his ACL. You had Sterling Shepard tear his ACL. And you had Kadarius Toney get traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. So there were a lot of things going wrong around Daniel Jones. But one thing that Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley did, they took all the negative criticism around them this season and they balled out. That's why I would sign both of those guys to new deals. And we'll see what the Giants end up doing. We'll see what the Giants end up doing and what avenue they were to go. And I'm excited to see where things end up for the Giants. I really am. So one last thing I want to close with now after the NFL talking about the Giants and the Patriots and movement around the NFL, which I think next week will be my first NFL mock draft. I'm going to give a mock first round draft. I'm going to give probably the top first 15 picks maybe, give some insight into those. Maybe I'll do 4 or 5 before the draft in April and update you guys every week or two. But I'm going to talk about the MLB and talk about the Red Sox really quick. because by the time we get back on air next Tuesday night, the Red Sox will already have played 3 preseason games, 3 spring training games. They open up their spring training schedule on Friday versus the Northeastern Huskies, and then we'll be playing their first MLB spring training game against the Atlanta Braves on Saturday at 1:05, playing the Tampa Bay Rays on Sunday at 1:05, the Minnesota Twins at 1:05 on Monday, February 27th, and the next Tuesday, which I'll be live on air for this game, at 6:40, they were playing the Miami Marlins for that game, which is pretty cool, considering it's a night game. A lot of those games during the preseason for the Red Sox spring training, a lot of those are day games, so it'd be cool to have a night game there. But I'll talk about the Red Sox really quick and how spring training's been going. Chris Sale threw the other day. They said he looked pretty good and felt pretty good. He should be ready for the regular season, which that's one thing the Red Sox haven't heard. Chris Sale hasn't started an opening day game for the Red Sox in, I believe it was 2019. I think 2019 was the last time Chris Sale started an opening day. And I want to make sure I get that right, but I believe it was 2019. I think Nate Eovaldi was 2020, 2021, and 2022 since Chris Sale was hurt in all 3 of those seasons. So Chris Sale started in 2018 and 2019 for the Red Sox as the opening day starter and has not made an opening day start since 2019. And if you look at Chris Sale's stats overall, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's one thing that the Red Sox need. The Red Sox need Chris Sale to stay healthy. I don't think he's going to be the best pitcher in the league like he once was. But if you look at his stats since 2019, since the 2019 season ended, so from 2020 to 2021 to 2022, of the last 3 seasons, he's made just 11 appearances, 11 starts with a 5-2 record, 3.17 ERA, with 13 walks to 57 strikeouts, 57 strikeouts to 13 walks for, I believe it is 4.38 strikeouts per walk, which is pretty good, and 48 in the third innings pitched, giving up 50 hits and 17 earned runs, and also hitting 5 batters in that stretch. But that's the thing with Chris Sale. He can't stay healthy. Only 11 starts over the last 3 seasons. 11 starts over the last 3 seasons. That's why you can't trust him. The last time he's made over 25 starts was 2019. He made 0 starts in 2020, 9 starts in 2021, and just 2 starts in 2022. And there was a lot of hype around him coming back in 2022. And the Red Sox were just starting to turn a corner, and everything was going right. And the Red Sox were looking like they were going to make a run. And then Chris Sale takes a line drive off the bat of Aaron Hicks in a game against the Yankees, and that ended his season. And obviously he had the biking incident as well, and Chris Sale just really can't stay healthy. Fell off a bike and hurt his wrist, and then also took a ball back off his hand in that game against the Yankees, and that also, both those ended his season. So we'll see what happens with Chris Sale and where things go, but obviously taking that line drive off the hand was not going to be, it didn't leave him any room to come back last season. So you really can't go into this season with any expectations. But as of now, he will be the Red Sox #1 starter, and we'll see what happens there. I'm excited to see what the Red Sox look like in the preseason. As of now, I believe Masataka Yoshida will be starting in left. It'll be Adam Duvall, who they just recently signed in a deal. I believe he's with the Miami Marlins last year. He will be coming over and being the Red Sox starter in center field, which would be pretty cool, considering the Red Sox could use another power bat. Last year for the Miami Marlins, he had, or Atlanta Braves he played for Miami in 2021. The Atlanta Braves, he had 12 home runs in 2022 with 36 RBIs and 213 as a batting average. But if you look at what he did in 2021 overall, he struggled in 2022 for Atlanta in 86 games. He also battled some injuries. In 2021, between Miami and Atlanta, he had 38 home runs and 113 RBIs with a 228 batting average. It was also the Gold Glove winner that year. So he brings a better glove to center field than Jarren Duran, even though I haven't given up on Jarren Duran. And he also brings the power. Even though last year wasn't his best power numbers, I think he can get that back. Hopefully Alex Cora can help him with that. Then in right field, you have Alex Verdugo. So from left to right in the outfield, just to repeat, you have Masataka Yoshida, who the Red Sox just signed from Japan. You have Adam Duvall, the Red Sox just signed in free agency from the Atlanta Braves. And you have Alex Verdugo, who has recently just talked about looking for a new deal, a new extension in right field. And he's the only lasting piece, really, besides Connor Wong, in that deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers for Mookie Betts, with obviously Jeter Downs getting DFA'd this offseason. At third base, you have Rafael Devers, obviously got his long-term extension, the biggest contract in Red Sox history, and obviously the biggest that Chaim Bloom has signed as a Red Sox president of baseball operations as well, the chief baseball officer, I should say. At shortstop, you have Kike Hernandez, which, I mean, who knows, how long that'll last since, Trevor Story probably won't be back until later in the season. If that, I mean, who knows what you're going to get out of him. But it doesn't look like Trevor Story will be back at all. That's another guy you really can't expect much from. You can't expect anything from Trevor Story. Just can't stay healthy. Just can't stay healthy. At second base, you'll probably have Christian Arroyo, I'd imagine. And then at first base, will be Tristan Casas. And then your DH will be Justin Turner with Reese McGuire doing the catching, probably on opening day for Chris Sale. So we'll see what the Red Sox look like, but I believe the batting will go Yoshida, Hernandez, Devis, Turner, Duvall, Verdugo, Casas, Arroyo, McGuire. That's just my guess as of now. If I was picking, though, I would probably go Yoshida. I would go Yoshida. I don't want to go Yoshida, Verdugo, Devis, because that's 3 left-handed bats in a row. But, yeah, that's tough. I don't think you really go lefty, lefty, lefty. I think that would be too much for the Red Sox. I don't think you really have lefty, lefty, lefty to be 1 through 3. So I'd probably go Yoshida. Maybe, I don't really know their 2-hit. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this Red Sox lineup is going to be, tough. I think I'm more worried about the Red Sox hitting and getting runs than I am worried about their pitching. I think that their rotation would be actually decent. Chris Sale, Corey Kluber, Nick Pivetta, James Paxton, Garrett Whitlock. I think all 4 of those guys would be decent. But you look at their lineup, it'll probably be Yoshida and Hernandez and Devis being the top 3 in the lineup. But if I would pick, I'd probably go Yoshida. I guess Duvall. I probably wouldn't go there. Maybe Turner. I'd probably go Yoshida, Turner, Verdugo, Devis, Duvall, Casas, Arroyo, McGuire. Or Hernandez actually has to be in there somewhere. I'd probably go Kike Hernandez at the 8. And then Arroyo at 7. Hernandez at 8. And Reese McGuire at 9. I don't think Kike Hernandez had a great year at all. I don't think he's really that great of a hitter. I think he was really just overrated just based off one playoff stretch. I really never was the biggest fan of him. Was never the biggest fan of him. I don't think he should be the 2-hitter in the lineup. But considering you can't go lefty, lefty, lefty to start out in the top 3 hitters, I guess it makes sense to have a righty in there. So it goes lefty, righty, lefty, righty to start out in your lineup. So Verdugo being the 5-hitter wouldn't be a bad thing. Wouldn't be a bad thing. But I think that 2-hitter probably could change around, and we'll see what the Red Sox end up going with. But as of now, I'd imagine it'll probably be Hernandez as the 2-hitter, even though that wouldn't be ideal in my eyes. But Justin Turner's probably a better cleanup hitter than he is a 2-hitter. And Alex Verdugo, I think, should be the 2-hitter, but you can have lefty, lefty, lefty. Since I don't think the Red Sox want to go with that, and you don't really see that in baseball ever nowadays. So we'll see what the Red Sox choose to do. I'm excited to see where they go, in the future with this lineup. Obviously, there's still a month until opening day, so we'll see what the lineup looks like from now. But I'm excited to see where the Red Sox go. I'm looking forward to seeing them in their first preseason game. This will be Friday versus Northeastern. I'm excited to see who Northeastern plays in that game. I'm excited to see who they pitch, which Northeastern just won 2 of 3 games this past weekend. They played... This past weekend, they played Greensboro, UNC Greensboro, I believe it was, winning 2 of 3 games, which was awesome. Starting out the season on a high note, winning 2 of 3 games, winning on Friday 11-0, losing 7-6 on Saturday, and then winning Game 3, the rubber match on Sunday at UNC Greensboro, 12-9. They had a pretty good weekend from Mike Sirota. Mike Sirota played very well for the Northeastern team. Had an on-base percentage in those 3 games. 667 was his on-base percentage, 750 slugging percentage, drawing 6 walks, including a hit batsman. 6 walks and hits batsman. So he reached base 7 times between, hit batsman and a walk. So 7 times out of 15 plate appearances he reached base with either a walk or a hits batter. And then also was 3 of 8 at the plate, scoring 6 runs with a double, a triple, 4 RBIs, 6 total bases, and adding in as well a 14-17 OPS and a 375 average. Jimmy Sullivan was a CAA hitter of the week, I believe, this past week. He's a transfer from UMass Lowell. This past weekend, he had 417 with an 1129 OPS. In 3 games played, he was 5 of 12 at the plate with the 417 batting average, a 667 slugging percentage, adding in a 462 on base percentage with 5 hits, 3 runs, and also adding in 4 RBIs. Mike Sirota had 4 RBIs as well this past weekend. So those are 2 guys to keep your eye on in that Northeastern lineup against the Red Sox on Friday. I'm excited to see Mike Sirota. I think he's going to be a top draft pick in the 2024 MLB draft. Ever since I saw him play last year, the first game I saw him play last year, I believe it was against Bryant, mid-March last season at Northeastern's field, Friedman Diamond in Brookline. I thought he was going to be a top pick in the MLB draft in 2024. Right away when I saw him play, I saw all 5 tools. I saw a player that can hit for power, hit for contact. I saw him steal bases. I saw him make great plays over the course of the season at center. I saw him hit for power, as I said, gets on base, has a good eye at the plate, can steal bases as well, and has a good glove and a really good arm. I saw everything you need in a first-round pick in Mike Sirota. And I also see a leader as well. He's a young player, but that Northeastern lineup was not the same without Mike Sirota in there last year. So I'm excited to see what he does the rest of the season in Northeastern baseball. As I said, they start out the season 2-1 with Wyatt Scotty going on Friday, going 5 scoreless innings, giving up 4 hits, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, giving up just 1 double. 4 hits he gave up, 3 of them being singles. 1 double. He did hit a batter as well with a 1.4 whip in those 5 innings. Very good outing for him. Did get the win as well, was 1-0 in that game. So very impressive start to the season for him. I'm excited to see who Northeastern pitches, whether or not they go with one of the legit starters and try to go, with the legit starter, try to beat the Red Sox, or they try to throw in just a starter just to, dump a guy in there and give a guy an opportunity that's, in the back end of the rotation rather than starting a guy that they're going to probably have to pitch on Saturday when they have a doubleheader, I believe, 11 a.m. and 2:30. They'll be playing against Indiana State on Saturday, February 25th, so just a day after that game on Friday, playing the Red Sox. We'll play 2 games against Indiana State on Saturday, and then we'll also play on Sunday versus Indiana State as well. Indiana State is 2-1 on the year, losing to Iowa to begin the year, but just won their last 2 games against Florida Gulf Coast and Quinnipiac, winning both those games 6-1 and 8-7 respectively, beating Florida Gulf Coast just today, actually at 2 p.m., 8-7. So we'll see how they do in that game. They actually play tomorrow at Miami, at the University of Miami, at 6 p.m. So see what Northeastern pitches on Friday. As I said, I'm excited to see what Mike Sirota and that Northeastern team has in store for this season. I'll probably do a podcast upload about Northeastern baseball overall, maybe even BC baseball too. Give you guys my thoughts on them and where the season, where I think each of those teams will go this season. As for BC baseball, I'll just give a quick update on them. They did win 2 of their 3 games this weekend against Pepperdine in California. Pepperdine, they play in Malibu, California. So Northeastern was playing at UNC Greensboro on the road, playing in warmer weather. And then you also had BC traveling to California, playing warmer weather there in Malibu, California. Losing the first game, the open 9-0 against Pepperdine. They couldn't really get anything going on offense at all. I think they had 4 hits in the game. Were shut out, obviously. Losing that game 9-0, which isn't a great way to start the season. But overall, recovered very well in that Saturday game, winning 3-0, and then winning 18-6 in that Sunday game. Very impressive finish for that BC baseball team, getting 4 runs in the second inning, and also had 8 runs in the fourth inning, which was their biggest inning of the game, having 16 total hits in the game, had 0 errors, and also pitched very well. Sean Hard got the start for them. Did give up 5 earned runs with 2 strikeouts and 2 walks. But after that, the bullpen only gave up 1 run in the final 7 innings pitched, giving up just 5 hits and striking out 10 batters over the next 5 innings, and also giving up just 1 earned run. So very impressive, and also walking only 3 guys, the bullpen, in the last 5 innings. So very impressive finish there for the BC baseball team. They got a lot of offensive production out of Cole Mercado. He was 4 of 6 in that game with 4 RBIs. Mercado also had, I believe, a run scored. Yes, a run scored as well. And then they also got a home run out of Cam Leary's first of the season, and Barry Walsh as well. Both those guys were very productive in that game. Cam Leary was 2 of 4 with 2 runs scored, or 1 of 4 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs scored, also adding in a walk. And then you also had, as I said, the other home run was Barry Walsh, who was 3 of 5 in that game, probably their best offensive player besides Cole Mercado. 3 of 5 in that game with 4 RBIs and a walk. He was 4 of 5, or 4 of 6, that is, in plate appearances and reaching base. So that's pretty impressive. And he also had a double as well. So hopefully BC baseball stays hot heading into next weekend. They were 2-1 this past weekend. They will be playing on Friday against Bucknell in Charleston, South Carolina, before playing Canisius College on Saturday in Charleston, Carolina, and then playing Rutgers as well on Sunday. So that's a 3-game stretch, playing each of those teams, Bucknell, Canisius, and Rutgers 1 game each. And then they'll play Kennesaw State for a 3-game stretch, March 3rd, March 4th, and March 5th. Next weekend, not this coming weekend, but the weekend after this following weekend, 2 weekends away, actually, that would be. They'll be playing them at Kennesaw State in Georgia. They're 2-1 on the year. Kennesaw State winning their last 2 games, beating New Orleans 10-1 and 8-4 in the last 2 games. So see where Northeastern baseball, BC baseball ends up this season. Both those teams, obviously, we'll see where they end up. And I'm going to give a quick podcast upload on both those squads and see where they were to go in the future. I'll give predictions for the season. But anyways, that will conclude this episode. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. Before I finish, as always, going to give a few quick shout-outs. Shout out to the Key family. Thank you guys both so much for listening. I appreciate you guys always listening in, and having your insight always means the world to me, and having you guys always, let me know you're listening means more than words can describe. So thank you. Quick shout out to the Loftus family as well. Thank you guys always listening in. Thank you to Auntie Lisa. Thank you to my uncle as well, the Sports Encyclopedia, Frankie. Thank you so much for listening in. Having your sports thoughts and your takes does mean a ton to me, and I'm excited to have you back on here again soon. We'd love to have you on maybe next week. We'll be in touch about that. But thank you so much for always listening in as well. You're one of the biggest fans of the radio show, and it does mean the world to me, so I appreciate that. And shout out to my family, my parents, and my siblings. Thank you guys for always listening in. Shout out to the sports guru as well. Sports guru Mike Hurley, we need a return from him back on the podcast at some point. He hasn't been on for a few weeks, so hopefully the sports guru Mike Hurley will be back on in the next week or two. Maybe with the Sports Encyclopedia next week. We'll see where things go. I think that's my nickname for my Uncle Frankie, the Sports Encyclopedia. No, it's the Sports Aficionado. There it is. I got it right. The Sports Aficionado. I got that right. The Sports Encyclopedia is Paul from Southie, and then you got the Sports Aficionado, Frankie. So hopefully have all you guys back on within the next week, and hopefully have Brian as well. As I said, shout out to the Key family. Thank you guys always for listening in. Hopefully have you guys all call in and talk anything sports from the Bruins, Celtics, Red Sox, Patriots. We can talk everything. I'm sure I'm going to be even more Patriots focused over the next few weeks with the offseason and free agency beginning pretty soon. So I'll keep you guys updated. I'll be back live on air next Tuesday night, February 28th from 7 to 8 p.m. The Red Sox will be playing at 6:40 against the Miami Marlins at that time. Maybe I'll give you guys an update on that game live. And then also talk about what happened in the Red Sox first 3 preseason games and those spring training games against MLB teams. And also talk about the Red Sox playing against Northeastern and what happened in that game. As I said, one guy to keep your eye on is Mike Sirota. He can do everything that you need in a first-round pick, and I'm excited to see what he does for the Northeastern Huskies and how Northeastern does this season. Anyways, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it, and hope you guys have a great rest of your night. I'll see you guys next Tuesday night on WZBC AM Sports Radio. As always, it means the world to me, and shout out to everyone for listening in. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good one. Stay safe, stay well, and take care. I'll see you guys next Tuesday night.